All right, let's get into this. I think that Last of the Druids is going to be a good patch. I'm more optimistic, way more optimistic than I was when I saw the reveal. Yeah, I don't really know how to say anything other than public sentiment seems to be a little bit down, but I'm pretty excited. Let's get into it. Last of the Druids. The Druid class, boom. Really good. I would say like 9 out of 10. Weird that Primal Talismans are two-handers for a class/slash playstyle that wants you to be in melee. That seems a little bit weird, that you can't have a shield or a defensive offhand. But, I digress. The ability to jump between forms, because the skill gems themselves are form agnostic, is really, really awesome. So you can go from like this one, Lunar Assault, hit Furious Slam, transform into a bear, do the bear slam, go back into Lunar Blessing, jump back and forth, never have to be in human form unless you want to like drop down like spell totems or something. Very sick. Shaman Ascendancy, no notes, 10 out of 10. Rage casting for the first thing is really sick. I'm currently thinking about Rage Poison Bear for some reason, because there's that lineage support called Takati's Ire that got a little buff, and it's 2% faster poison damage per rage that you have. I don't know, seems pretty good. And in addition to that, bonded modifiers on runes, there's like, you can get 40% increase ignite magnitude on a single rune. That's a ton of ignite magnitude. 40% increased ignite magnitude. Runes stack, right? So you have in your wand, staff, whatever, at least 2 runes, so 80%. Oftentimes 3 runes, it's 120%. If you can get to the exceptional corrupted for 160% increased ignite magnitude on a two-hander, that's pretty good. I don't know what to say other than that's pretty good. Shaman looks really sick. Haven't seen the other notables, but I'm thinking about Rage, Ignite, Poison, something. I don't know. It's probably bait. The Oracle, I have a little bit of issue with because I think it's in a bad design space. The Simon Says, play the game in the way I tell you and I reward you with bonus damage notable is not very interesting or fun, in my opinion. And then the alternate passive tree can kind of be one of two things. Like, if the nodes are so good that it overshadows everything else in the game, then you're kind of forced into Oracle. But if they're not that good, then there's no reason to grab that. You have to really strike this weird balance of like, it's pretty good in order to warrant taking it, but not so good that it overshadows everything else. And I think that's a really hard task to do. The ones that we were shown off didn't seem very good. I mean, there was self-sacrificing, reduce spirit reservation efficiency of skills, and then 40% increased reservation efficiency of minions for a net 20 on your minions. This one's just okay, I think. And then they showed off, sometimes you don't die, 7% chance to not die. And this is terrible. You would never take this. Don't take this. Avoid it. So overall, Druid as a whole, pretty good. 9 out of 10. Shaman Ascendancy itself, 10 out of 10. I'm excited. Probably what I'll be playing. Oracle, I want to say like a 5 or a 6. I think it's in a weird, bad design space, but I can't be too mad about it. I just haven't seen enough to pass further judgment. Maybe it'll surprise me and it'll be really good. Moving on. Fate of the Vow. This is Incursion 2.0. Incursion 2.0 looks really sick. The ability to build your own temple, this looks really fun, right? Optimizing and interacting with it, this is so much better than the PoE1 variant of Incursion that it makes me actually excited to do the Alva temples now. Not to mention that the rewards look really good. Maybe not from like a general loot perspective, but specialized loot. Being able to itemize the double corruptions, itemize your double corrupt on your gems, being able to build your own Foulborn unique looks pretty good. There's, corruptions for your tablets. All of those look really, really fun. And they look like really worth doing Incursion to get to those. I am a little bit worried that, this is a pretty massive temple. Having to run this and how much time you're investing into it to get those rewards could be a point of contention. But I think overall, I think this is really good. It looks really fun. I think we do got to talk about Etziri a little bit because it does seem like you have to jump through a lot of hoops in order to fight her. But the old Etziri fight is so boring, and her loot isn't really all that good unless you drop Curiosity Splinter. But I think the loot that they showed off, aside from this False Siphoner, I'm not sure what that is, this Drill Neck Quiver looks pretty good, honestly. Turning Proj on attacks is pretty sick. And then this at Ziri's rule, the Mirrors of Reflection is really good, and while +2 to all corrupted spell skill gems isn't that great for a two-handed staff, spells which cost life gain 97% damage as extra physical. That is an insane amount of extra fizz. I don't think there's anything that even comes close to giving you gain extra as to the tune of 97. And I think in the trailer it was like it was over 100%. That's a ton of damage. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of excited for this stuff. I hope to see better uniques drop from her overall to kind of warrant jumping through all those hoops to find the architect, go into the past, slam down his access the pinnacle encounter, path to the pinnacle encounter, finally unlock Atziri, go in, fight Atziri, and then get those rewards. It seems like a lot of hoops. But, you know, it's probably fine. Overall, I think I'm pretty excited. As long as the price to performance is good on this, I'm going to be happy because this looks fun. Going through the rest, there's a lot of cool things in here. Abyss going core, pretty good. This general improvements is huge. The CPU performance is great. No longer having to tweak with NVIDIA Reflex or dropping your sound channel count or doing any of that stuff to try and get higher performance is a really, really awesome thing. As far as player changes, ascendancy changes, and other things, this is kind of like the start of like all the balance. And I think the balance theory going into this patch was nerf lightning and Deadeye and overperformers, bows, and things like that. Life stacking payoffs for like Adalui's tech rods, Wrathpith, things like that. And then bring up the power level of those underperformers in any different way. You know, there's some really large defensive buffs later on. There's some really large offensive buffs later on. And then there's a lot of nerfs to like the really top end popular overperformers. And I think this is a good thing for balance. I think it's something that if you are a game designer, that's something that you want to be doing. You want to be bringing down the power level of the overperformers, and you want to be buffing the power level of those underperformers to try and keep everything in line. And then it's easier to make changes to monsters and content in a way that satisfies that sort of general bracket of power level. Of course, there's always going to be outliers. Everything is going to be OP in one way or another. But I think this direction that they're going in is at least better than it was before. Like they kind of know like, hey, here's the problem points. Let's tackle those and keep pushing forward, right? And I have faith that they'll get to a spot where I think they're satisfied with it to the point that they're not making these huge sweeping changes, because Deadeye and Lightning Arrow in particular got like quadruple tapped and it is nasty. So first thing, Tailwind. Huge nerf. Wind Ward removed. Bullseye being a 4-pointer now is pretty bad. And kind of to go through all of those things in sequence, if you're a ranger and you go into Deadeye, you take Tailwind, you take Wind Ward, you take this, and you take this. Say you're playing Lightning Arrow, all right? This is kind of like the general setup or the pretty standard one. Now that you don't have this, what do you take? You only have 2 extra points. You can't take Bullseye because now it's locked behind Called Shots. If you take Called Shots, it's just kind of okay. You don't really want this avidity, I don't think, for Lightning Arrow or that style of build. This new Mirage Deadeye Ascendancy is okay, but does require, you know, investment into it in order for it to be good. I don't really know what you take. It feels almost like they chopped Deadeye to be a 3 Ascendancy class, and that kind of feels weird in a way. I'm glad to see it be knocked down significantly. I don't know if they needed to go this far, especially with the nerfs to multiple arrows, Nova support, other things. But yeah, woof, it is a bad day to be a Deadeye. That's all I gotta say. As far as the other Ascendancy changes go, Pathfinder is a huge big winner. In particular, this new Pathseeker Traveler's Wisdom opens up a lot of build diversity and design space for Pathfinder in particular, because now you're able to choose to allocate your passives from Warrior or Sorceress. And so if you're playing a build where you don't have great nodes in your Ranger side of the tree, but you want to sort of enhance either like your fire damage. There's not a lot of fire damage in that Ranger section of the tree, but there is a lot in both the Sorceress top left and pathing out to the left side of the tree from Warrior as well. And that I think is really exciting. And because you want to be efficient with your points, if you're not looking for the stats anymore, being able to change those stats into more damage, more global defense, more cost efficiency to kind of tweak and tune your build to make it strong is really, really good. And I think even if you don't take these things, 5 passive skill points and the option to turn your excess stats into damage, global defenses, or cost efficiency is really powerful by itself. I don't know if it warrants the full 4-point investment just for that, if you're gonna like forego being able to path warrior, path sorceress, but it is really good. These other two here are also buffs. Removing this contagious contamination, which is already an effect that you can get on Herald of Plague, means that getting your overwhelming toxicity is now 2 points. Now you're only spending 2 points to play the poison archetype for Pathfinder, and that's good. The other one is this practical remedies has been removed, and immune to ignite, immune to freeze, immune to shock are nice things, but those being removed makes sustainable practices a 2-pointer, and that means 50% of evasion rating also grants elemental damage reduction. That is a huge defensive layer for 2 points in your Ascendancy tree. Pathfinder, big winner. The only unfortunate thing is the acidic concoction plant explodey poison build. That's gone, but that I'm kind of treating like a bug, so you win some, you lose some. The other big winner here, I personally think, is Blood Mage, because it's untouched basically. This is a minor buff to a niche notable, and if you notice, there is one Ascendancy that's not listed here, and that's Lich. Lich got untouched, and Lich is really good. Defensively, one of the strongest Ascendancies. I don't know what you want me to say other than it's going to be amazing in the next patch because it didn't receive any nerfs and it didn't really need any buffs. That's pretty good in my opinion. So Witch, big winner. Everybody else kind of got like small tweaks here and there. Invoker got this really nice one here. This meta skills have 50% increase spirit reservation efficiency, means that cast on crit and cast on elemental ailment now only cost 67 spirit. So you're saving 33 spirit per, which means, is an extra buff. It's an extra herald. It's an extra wind dancer. It's an extra ghost dance. If you have 200 spirit and you're using both cast on elemental ailment and cast on crit, then now you can sock it in blink if you really want. Seems pretty good. Invoker, nice buffs here. Everybody else, small tweaks. Nothing really too notable in my opinion. Medium to nice. Passive skill changes, kind of in keeping with that, bring the overperformers down, bring the underperformers up. Lightning being one of those overperformers. These two like capstone notables being tapped kind of sucks, but yeah, they kind of removed stacking sort of as an archetype, and they're continuing to remove stacking as an archetype. This 15% more maximum now being just 4% extra and 4% extra cold. And this effect of this 15% more maximum is now 33% reduced on the pure power notable, which is now 10% more maximum. So they're really changing like the top end of lightning. There is also a few other things here. Crimson Assault, granting 50% more magnitude of bleeding you inflict, is a huge magnitude increase on bleed. That seems really good. Walker of the Wilds, pretty big nerf here. It being removed from the tree is another Deadeye nerf. It's another lightning arrow nerf. It is a nerf to any elemental based attack build on the right side of the tree that wants mana lead. It is unfortunate. Now you have to remove a link from one of your skills in order to get that. That's kind of all to say the stuff here. There is the biggest thing here. Added more than 250 new passive skills to the Druid side of the passive tree. Until we know 100% what everything is for these, it's hard to pass judgment on the passive skill tree. But because Druid looks so good, this is going to be good. That area of the tree is going to become very desirable, and there's not a lot to say other than that for the passive skill tree. Support gem changes. There's tons of stuff here too. I mean, still in keeping with that, bring those overperformers down, bring the underperformers up. Just as an example of buffs, look at these Zoth's Eshtul Ulnatal. These are twice as effective. That's a 100% increased damage from what it was. That's really good. And then by contrast, Adalui's Bloodletting is half as good. And no longer has that cost multiplier to gain more damage as extra fizz. There's some other stuff in here that was kind of interesting to think about. 75% of increases and reductions to cast speed also apply to projectile speed is kind of nice for Spark. This Zarok's Refrain echoing 3 times and echoing with 40% ink AoE is really good. This Wrath's Assault loading more bolts. The explosive shot crossbow build that likes Wrath's Assault just got buffed. That's nice. Here's the Arcali's Lust, which is 33% more damage for the same amount of poisons. It's 5 poisons to get the maximum effect of this. That's really good. Takati's Ire for the rage thing. I don't know. It could be good. The rage bear poison could be really fun. Nova projectiles. Huge nerf here. Look, no more 4 additional proj. Now, you deal the same amount of damage, but in order to get the same amount of arrows for your Nova projectiles, on top of also the nerf to extra arrows fired from bow attacks. It's going to be an almost insurmountable effort to get this back to a playable state. And the Nova projectiles 2 support is absolutely hampered by having a mandatory cooldown time of 8 seconds. This is borderline unplayable. There's very, very few things that want this. There's some other stuff here, but that's kind of all I wanted to say about the gem changes. Moving on to skill changes. Again, nerf those overperformers, rebalance, bring those underperformers up a little bit. The Frozen Mandibles monster no longer being able to be a Spectre or Tamed Beast is interesting. That's the Ant. The Ant was truly so good with the haste aura and everything. Oh my god. Best Tamed Beast in the game, in my opinion. 07, you will be missed. Looking over, here's that acidic concoction fix. It's more like a bug fix, in my opinion. Arc is 50% increased from 50% more. This is a nerf to the shock effect. And if you kind of look down here, 375% more chance to shock, down from 750% on ball lightning. Again, bringing lightning down because that's one of those overperformers. Bringing underperformers up, however, Infusions. Infusions was a really big winner here. This is almost double damage on this fire infused ball lightning. 856 fire damage at the top end, up from 431. 1,116 fire damage, up from 638 on the burning ground that it leaves behind. Really, really powerful effect. Same for Comet, Fire Infused Comet, almost double damage, 418 at the start, up to 1554, over 829. You know, this is almost double damage. It's crazy amounts of more damage here. Dropping down these spirit reservations by quote unquote one tier, 100 down to 60 and 60 down to 30 on these ones. I'm not sure if, you know, Monk can make use of these, but if Invoker can, you know, this is just even more buffs that you can slap into your build. Explosive Spear gaining a +1 limit every 8 gem levels makes this much more appealing. At the top end, 724%, up from 543. It's like a 50% damage increase. That's pretty good. Fangs of Frost, 50% more freeze buildup. A lot of those underperformers being brought up. Freezing Mark no longer causes an explosion. They're really changing this style of play. Builds that want Freezing Mark and later on Voltaic Mark also got hit in this way. They don't have the explosion anymore. Those overperformers getting brought down. The builds that relied on, you know, Explodey for this. I didn't think these were as egregious, so this one is I'm a little iffy on, but I understand that they don't want, you know, you to be blowing up the screen, shooting once, and having like the entire screen die kind of deal. Continuing on, Ghost Dance, massive nerf, you know, from 5 Ghost Dance shrouds down to a maximum of 3 always, and it recharges half as slow, 6.1 seconds from 3.05 seconds at gem level 20. That's really, really tough. Ghost Dance as a defensive layer really, really brought down in power. Herald of Thunder, slight nerf, a little bit less than I thought they were going to do because of how prevalent Herald of Thunder is, but I understand that it's technically not the issue with those builds, and so they still want it to be a viable option for other lightning-based builds or other attack-based builds that want Herald of Thunder, but aren't Lightning Arrow. Here's the lightning nerfs. Lightning Arrow no longer bypasses the charge up time on Lightning Rod Burst, can only be every 0.1 seconds. This is exactly what they did to Ball Lightning plus Lightning Rod. That was really popular in 0.1 in combination with Lightning Rods. Your sustained damage output is much, much weaker, especially since Lightning Rod, limit of active Lightning Rods allowed is halved. You are going to be doing way less damage. The payoff for all those shocks with Lightning Conduit is really, really hampered. It's from, at max quality, 25% more damage with hits down to 10%. That is over half. It's like 66%-ish less damage per 5% shock on the enemy, and that's pretty tough. Living Bomb, while I didn't actually see Living Bomb being used as like an actual damage skill, it was more to proc your fire infusions that you were getting. Scaling up to 721 at the top end from 510 is still like a 40% damage increase right there. That's really good. Oil Grenade, cooldown is lowered and the duration is increased. That's pretty good. Slight buff to Perfect Strike. I don't really know if this matters. Warrior is in still a weird spot where it is so slow. Primal Strikes. Final Strike has 20 to melee strike range from +5 and inflicts elemental exposure on hit, lowering total elemental resistances by 50%. This is a massive more damage multiplier since lowering resistance is sort of multiplicative for every percentage that you can take off. Reap getting a base crit hit chance of 14%. I really wish Reap was an actual skill gem and not just attached to that base type, but I digress. One thing that they didn't touch was row amount, and I'm very confused by this because I thought row amount was part of the problem. I mean, I know that, speed is king and you kind of want to give speed to certain classes that should be quote unquote faster than others, but I thought row amount was a hugely unnecessary buff to that playstyle and allowed you to do things that other classes just couldn't ever compete with. While it no longer increases your move speed, since it has the 100% reduced movement speed penalty from using skills while mounted from 80%, it kind of all balances out and it's just as good as it was before. And this reduced movement penalty from using skills, that stat as a whole was heavily nerfed both on the tree and on gear. So that's kind of a strange direction for this to go in because this stat is so premium. Sacrifice, granting minions revive 40% more slowly from 60%. This is a 33% increased revival speed. That's just good. For builds that want sacrifice, detonate dead, my beloved, you will always be missed. Unfortunately, you are dead as a skill, but this would have been a really nice buff to you. Voltaic Grenade now has 3 uses up from 2, and the cooldown is now 4 seconds, kind of in line with that oil grenade. It's a nice little buff here for crossbows. Wind Dancer, one of the most used buffs in the entire game. Massive nerf here, but is it really? You're not really using Wind Dancer for the actual ability itself. So even though the attack damage got 50% as effective, you're not really going to feel this because you are mainly using Wind Dancer for the defensive buff that it gives you. Okay, continuing on to unique items. Unique items got a ton of love, especially defensive, which is really interesting. It looks to me like they really wanted to make unique items comparable to good rares in the end game. And that's exciting. Mahu got some of its power back. It's not as good as it was on launch, but 333% up from 100% is quite nice. Adorned got its old range back. I guess technically it used to be 50 to 150 and now it's 0 to 150. Unfortunately, you're still gonna be struggling to find all the jewel sockets to make Adorned really good, but Perfect Adorned is still going to be a desirable chase item. Asylum and Perfidy and Warrior Invictus have these massive increases to armor and evasion on their base stats, right? This is 3 times as much at the top end. This is 3 times as much at the top end. For Warrior Invictus, it's only 33% more at the top end. But giving those base defenses a boost means that they're more competitive with rare body armors in the end game, and that's nice. Power boost in the -25 from -10, that's again, every point of resistance you can take off of your enemies is a multiplicative damage boost to yourself and a huge resistance buff here. If you can get a 100% Zoff's Blood, you really only need to find maybe one piece of gear with 20% fire resistance on it to be capped. Same for Choir of the Storm and same for Pandemonious. These are massive resistance buffs to this. Even Controlled Metamorphosis, no longer having this chaos resistance dump, makes this have less of an opportunity cost because you're no longer struggling to find extra chaos resistance on your gear. And that's good. Svalin, big winner. In addition to getting the 33% more armor at the top end on the base armor of the shield, now you can find a perfect Svalin. You get Lucky Block and you take no damage from your blocked hits. And that is a really powerful effect. The block cap is only 50%, except if you're Warbringer. But this is really powerful. And it's actually really powerful for Warbringer in that sense, because you're no longer taking this compounded effect if you do have the 75% maximum block chance. If you look at Defiance of Destiny, this is one of the most powerful effects in the game ever conceived. And it's now so much better. It's at least 50% better at the top end. And if you catalyze this 30% jumps to 36%. Recovering 36% of missing life before being hit by an enemy is almost as effective as its PoE1 launch variant. It boosts your effective HP through the roof on an already chase unique. I think this is really powerful. And it kind of points in the direction that they want life to be good. They just don't want it to be an offensive measure as well. Case in point, the second thing you're looking at here, Wrathpith Globe. Non-channeling now has 3% increased crit per 100 from 5%. This is pretty big because per 100 maximum life, say you're sitting at 5,000 life, that's 50 times, right? 5 times 50 is 250% increase, and then 3 times 50 is only 150%. You're missing that 100%, you're missing 100% increased crit chance. just from this if you're at 5,000 life, which is totally easy and doable. The payoff for life stacking, no longer as good, but life-based uniques are very powerful now. Whispering Ice, sort of a rebalance. They don't want stacking in the game, right? So this 4% increase is now a 2% increase, and this increased intelligence is gutted by 30% at the top end. But you're getting extra plus levels here, and you are getting increased effect of this elemental exposure on hit. So while the stacking portion is being nerfed, the plus levels, so this is sort of flat damage, and exposure infliction is getting buffed. And so you're kind of seeing where they want offense to be. They don't want stacking to be very viable, or they need you to have like a lot of investment into it. And they're bringing up the power level of things that are a little bit less utilized. Brass Dome, 800% increased armor up from 500%. This is 60% more armor that you're getting from your Brass Dome. So if you are an armor build, Brass Dome is all of a sudden very, very appealing because it gives you that massive amount of armor. Armor is still in a weird spot, but this is still nice. Coming Calamity is already a chase unique, and now it has Herald skills deal 50 to 100% increased damage. Cloak of Flame being given extra maximum energy shield and an increase on this. This is a 25% increase on the physical damage taken as fire. 50% fizz as fire is an incredible defensive stat line. It just feels like they're bringing the base power level of these uniques up to a point where, yeah, these are ones that I want instead of a rare chest, potentially. Couture of Crimson has 10 to 15 increased max life from 25% reduced. This is an insane buff on the body armor that says your life leech can overflow. Incredibly powerful modifier. That's really good. Sacrosanctum, up to 20% now, which is doubly as effective as it was before. Damage taken recouped as life. This is the body armor that says your life recoup also applies to energy shield. This is more life recoup. This is more energy shield recoup on an already pretty good unique base. Warrior Invictus, all of its sort of variants got massive increases, right? These are all quite good, with the exception of the all attributes, right? This is only +1 at the top end. That's still nice, but like looking at these other ones, you know, the all elemental resistance really got buffed here. The per spirit per socket filled got buffed here. The life got juiced. The mana got juiced. Chaos resistance got juiced. Increased global defenses. And remember, the base defenses of this chess piece got buffed. Maybe Warrior Invictus comes back in a very real way. I'm really hoping that Shaman bonded modifiers do have some that are for armor specifically, because I'm really hoping that Shaman, Warrior Invictus, rune stacking guy could be an archetype or a shell for builds that want that. And that could be really sick. Queen of the Forest. This is a little bit weird. They are taking speed out of the game. Speed is already a premium stat, and I don't know, man. Why would you want to take more speed out of the game? The game is already pretty slow. This was a really nice chase unique for those that could boost the movement speed to past 75%. I don't know. It feels a little bit bad here. I personally want more speed in the game, but it doesn't really match the vision, for lack of a better word, and that's a little bit unfortunate. Thunderfist Crackling Palm. I think I forgot to mention that Hollow Palm was basically getting a net nerf overall, but your base unarmed attack time being 17% better than it was before is kind of interesting. And now if you are a Hollow Palm Thunderfist build, you have a massive 15% base critical hit chance. This is 3 times as much crit as it had before, and 40% more lightning damage at all levels. This is really good. This makes Thunderfist, Hollow Palm really, really appealing. Perfidy having a chance to avoid all damage now. The physical is getting dropped a little bit, the chaos is getting dropped a little bit, but now it also has avoid fire, avoid cold, and avoid lightning. This kind of makes this quite an appealing chess piece from a defensive setup. This here is a really nice Choir of the Storm buff. Having 5 cooldown uses from 1 is really, really good. You're just going to be able to proc this Storm's Lightning Bolt way more often than you did before. A lot of these down here got added later on, and I want to talk about just a few of them here. Wrath Pith Globe. Non-channeling spells deal 6% increased damage per 100 maximum life. Before, the nerf was only to the increased critical hit chance. This is a much bigger deal. This 6% increased damage is a pretty big blow. If we kind of go with the 5,000 life thing that we were talking about before, at 5,000 life, you're getting 500% increased damage. Now at 5,000 life, you are getting 300% increased damage. You're missing 200% increased damage. That's an incredible nerf to this item as a whole. And so while they want to make life good, they're gutting the payoffs for life. Adalui's got hit, Wrathpith got hit. Ugh, it's gonna feel much worse to play the life stacking build that's getting obscene amounts of damage from it, but it was an overperformer, and I understand why they are bringing it down in power. Indigon, oof, this is pretty tough to look at. The ramp is much slower. Recently is still only 4 seconds. This is a pretty big nerf to Indigon's damage, so even though they are giving Dream Fragments a little bit of that increased maximum mana for stacking, the payoff for damage for that stacking is being hit quite significantly. That's a little bit unfortunate. All right, item changes. This is a new one. Omen of Homogenizing Exaltation and Homogenizing Coronation have been disabled from dropping. Huge nerf to crafting rares as a whole, which again kind of makes these uniques more appealing, but it cannot be stated how rough this is. A lot of the TLDR for this is that they've limited a lot of the chase or specialized runes and idols, which is the former talisman, and the soul cores, specialized soul cores. Now they have a limit of 1. So your 60% move speed boots, those are going away. They want to take speed out of the game, but still Roa is okay. This kind of indirectly nerfs or balances Shaman in a weird way, but it is one of those things where, man, you really wished it didn't have to be this way, because speed is king, because speed is something that people want. Why are you taking out more speed? I guess we'll see. I don't have too much to say about these as a whole. The other notable things in here is this modifiers for bow attacks to fire X additional arrows has been disabled, including on implicits. That's the huge thing, because all of it's being replaced by this %X chance to fire an additional arrow. How I'm reading this is that it's like last epoch, where every 100% is 1 additional arrow, and 200% is 2 additional arrows. 300% is guaranteed 3 additional arrows. And then if you have something in between that, if you have like 125%, you have guaranteed 1 additional arrow, and you have a 25% chance to fire a second arrow. It's usually 1 extra, sometimes 2. This is a pretty big nerf to, again, Deadeye, to bows, to lightning arrow, to builds that use arrows in general. It is going to become mandatory. They've kind of just replaced additional arrows with this. Each additional arrow is so much more damage that it's hard to not want this as a chase modifier. And if you can get this 200% on this of many, if you can get a perfectly rolled one, that is going to be very, very valuable. So they really haven't changed it per se. They've just made it harder to get. And that's kind of a weird thing to sit and be with. But I think overall, you know, I'm fine with not playing bows. I was probably not going to play bows anyway, so this doesn't really affect me. There's some slight rebalancing here. Some of them are getting more damage or lower damage because they get more crit, or they get more attacks or slower attacks, and so they have to kind of rebalance all these different things here. These don't matter too much. These are just slight tweaks here and there. The chase bases are still going to be chase bases, right? But ultimately, it doesn't matter too much for these things. The one that, again, does kind of matter is these dual string, twin, and Gemini bows because of the implicit. Wow, the implicit isn't even 100%. It's now just 50% at each level. Yikes. Another thing that they're doing, which is a little bit strange to me because they did give other items more plus levels, is they've reduced the total plus levels on a lot of things. Usually +2 is now +1, +3 is now +2, and +4 is a range of 3 to 4 on most of these. And at the top end, like these perfect essences of battle, is +6 down to +5. On this one, it's +6 to +5, and then for one-handers, it's +4 to +3, +4 to +3. That's a little bit strange, in my opinion. They didn't actually talk about the perfect essence of sorcery here, which does make me think that that one hasn't been touched, so you can still get +3 levels of spells on your focus. But it is one of those things where it's like, I don't know particularly why you did that when you gave plus levels back elsewhere. Okay, let's talk about the big one, Endgame Changes. This is the one that makes me nervous. Everything else I think is okay, and I can see that the balance is being interesting. I can see Druid being really good. I can see the new temple being really fun. This one makes me worry. Maps no longer scale pack size as you increase in tier. Instead, increase monster effectiveness, which gives you extra quant, experience, and life to those monsters, right? And in addition to that, they've removed desecration on waystones, and they've removed the ability to instill your waystones. And they've tried to balance that by reworking tablets a third or fourth time. Now you can craft them up to 4, and you can rep them with one of the new rewards in the Incursion 2.0, and I think that's good. The problem for me is because there's less monsters, I think you're going to be seeing this increased quantity. If that increased quantity doesn't actually scale to if there were extra monsters into it, like the total amount of quant that you could get be equivalent, then that's going to be a problem. And they've removed quant from your tablets. To try and rebalance it, they've added these ones, the challengers of contest and of undertaking, in which they've given, map has wanted to do additional random modifiers, unique monsters have additional rare modifier and increased effectiveness, which is essentially quant. But what these essentially do, these act like risk scarabs for your tablets, like you're just adding more difficulty and then gaining the loot that way, when I don't think that's as equivalent to just giving your maps more quant. And so my worry is that you're going to feel a distinct lack of floor loot in the end game. And that is kind of the one thing that scares me for 0.4. Everything else looks good. Shaman looks good. Incursion looks good. The balance looks fine. I'm glad to see Lightning Arrow get dumpstered. I'm a little bit sad for those Deadeye players because I think they got a hit way more than they should have. But I was fine with pretty much everything until this, and this is the thing that concerns me. And then you say, hey, the following tablet modifiers have been buffed. But then as you kind of go through all of these, the overarching theme is that the top end didn't change. It's still up to 70% here. It's still up to 10% here. It's still 30% here. It's still 30% here. The only thing that changed was the floor. The floor was brought up. So on average, yeah, sure, your tablets are going to be better, but there's no exceeding chance for these things now. The ceiling didn't rise. And so I feel like even when you roll these things now, you're not going to be receiving as much loot as you did in 0.3, especially because Instilling got removed, Desecration got removed. Those were fantastic ways to add loot into your maps. Yes, tablets can have 4 modifiers, but even if you have 2 of these and 2 of these, I'm worried that the floor loot is not going to feel good. And you're going to have kind of a 3.27 issue where you're not dropping things on the ground, and then people are saying, what the hell, man? Like, why am I not dropping loot on the ground in a game about dropping loot on the ground? Yeah, that worries me. I really don't want that to be the case, and I'm hoping that once we feel it out and play it out, the less monsters in your map, but harder monsters, and to be clear, they do need to be harder. I'm worried about how this is going to feel from a loot perspective. There's 2 other things that's in here. They've rebalanced the way Delirium works. Overall, I think this is kind of strange. I think you're going to be dropping less liquid emotions in your maps, but you're going to be dropping way more liquid emotions in like your pinnacle content. And the last thing here that's actually really, really nice, Idols of Estazuni are no longer required to unlock vaults. I found something on the order of like 4 or 5 vaults, and I full cleared 4 or 5 nodes in every direction around the vaults, and I did not drop a single Idol of Estazuni. And that was maddening, especially because you're trying to get the Atlas completion for special unique maps, and having one of them just be locked away already means you have to go and fish for one of the other ones, and that was terrible. So I'm really, really glad that this is gone. That's kind of pretty much it. There's like one thing to note here. Bosses now have anti-burst mechanics. They're giving map bosses pinnacle damage reduction, which feels kind of ridiculous. I don't think it's going to matter, honestly. We have so much power in the game. That's everything. That's the whole patch. I mean, there's a lot of really cool stuff in here. A lot of things that were weaker now. I mean, Infusions, huge winner. Pathfinder, huge winner. Lich and Blood Witch, you're still good, man. New Incursion looks really exciting. The rewards look really good. Oh my god, Itemized Double Corrupt is so good. Some of these rewards look good. This Architect drops this Hyoxys Fulmination, and that looks kind of hilarious. If you're able to drop that trigger from 7 seconds down to a manageable 1.5, 2 seconds. I can see this being an actual build, and that could be really exciting. I think that's a cooked idea. Let's just be honest. And Druid looks amazing. With the minor exception of my umbrage with the Oracle, Shaman looks so good, man. And like the Power Fantasy looks so good. And there's like the memes about watering your plants and stuff like that. But Volcano looks good. And, when the Drake was spitting fire and popping the volcano, I don't know. It just looks exciting. And I'm actually pretty hyped for Last of the Druids. The only thing that makes me worried is the ground loot issue, but I'm way more hyped about it than I think a lot of my friends are, than a lot of the community sentiment is feeling. And while I think it's going to be good, I think there's going to be a lot of stuff to do. I'm worried that the perception has already been colored to the point that people are already doomering about it. They're not going to feel like they want to play and yada, yada, yada. But I think you should play. I think this patch is going to have a lot to offer. And I'm going to hold my reservations on the endgame loot stuff until I get a chance to play it. And hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully everything's good. There's a couple weird, stupid builds that I'm thinking about. Rage Poison, Shaman Bear. With the Pathfinder being able to path to fire nodes more effectively. Explosive Concoction seems kind of good. Ignite Druid with the massive amounts of increased Ignite you can get from those ruins. Who knows? It's exciting. That's all I got. I'll see you next time.